Hello. Okay. I think we're live. This is like, anytime I do anything technological, I feel like Harry Potter going to like track 9 3/4, where you just have to like run in and just like hope for the best. So, anyways, let me just double check that all is working. Let's see. Oh, yay! Okay, we are seen and heard. Yay! Hi, everyone. This is amazing. We are waiting on Jordan, who's going to be joining us soon. In the meantime, Julia and Amy, thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to talk about all things content creation as we go into another year. We're like, are we all content creators? Maybe. I think we are. It's a little bit confusing. Jordan, are you okay?
Yes, I was sorry. I was not in an accident. An accident happened in front of me. So I was like,
You were just a
probably
witness.
yeah. She's like, she's probably thinking I'm in an accident and I didn't type it correctly at all. I'm like, I'll show up. It's fine. So thank you.
We were all nervous,
Okay.
to be honest.
Sorry about that.
No, you're all good. You are all good. So glad you all are here. We were just getting started. Welcome everyone to this edition of Business Genius Hour, where we are going to talk all things content creation, what's working, what's not working, and all that good stuff. And just to start, I would love for you all to take a minute just to introduce yourselves and tell everyone who you are, what you do, and I'm not even going to make you say a fun fact. We'll just start with that. Oh, and what is your favorite type of content to create? There we go. We're just going to roll right into the topic.
I'll pass it to Amy because I feel like Jordan and I are in the gray and the black, so she automatically has the power punch intro.
Oh, shoot. Okay. That's a lot of pressure, but I'll try to live up to it. I'm Amy Shoenthal. I'm a writer. I'm a marketing consultant. I have a book coming out, The Setback Cycle, about how founders and leaders persevere through their most defining moments, out March 19th. And my favorite type of content to create, which is basically the only type of online content I've been creating for the past few months, is little quotes and reels about teasers from the book, because we are in full-on book promotion and that's become my whole personality lately. So that is my favorite type of content to create right now. Ask me again in 6 months, I'll have a different answer.
Wait a minute. I just need to challenge that, and I think this is going to be an important part of our conversation today, is that you're also a journalist, and writing articles is a form of content creation, even if it's not social media content.
I was going to talk about that a little bit today, about how I feel like,
We're going to roll into it.
yeah, like I don't know if I'm an online social media content creator, but I create content in different ways. So, yeah.
Yes. I love it. Cool. All right. Jordan, you'll go next, and then Julia.
Yes, great. I'm Jordan Gill. I am the head honcho over at Systems Saved Me, and I have been in business about 8 years. Pivoted all sorts of this is Vivian. She also wants to say hello. And I now am currently in kind of a play mode of my business, is what I am referring it as, in the sense of I've done a lot, I've shared a lot, I've tried a lot, and I'm kind of in this homecoming, if you will, back to my systems roots. And so I'm really excited for what's to come, but a lot of it is still in like creating in the back end. So to be continued, but basically in play mode around systems, because obviously I love systems. And the type of content I like to create are Instagram Reels. I know I'm one of the very few that actually enjoy creating Instagram Reels. I totally understand like the beating up of Instagram Reels, because when they first came out, I hated them too, with the pointing and the dancing. But now I have settled into a type of Instagram Reels that feels really good to me and still gets my point across without it burning me out or feeling overwhelming. So excited to talk about that.
Awesome.
Super excited. Julia!
Awesome. My name is Julia, aka Smarter in a Sec. I'm a content creator on Instagram, on TikTok, and I also have a Substack, and I'm also a marketing and career consultant that really falls under the umbrella of personal brand. So whether I'm partnering with a brand or whether I'm partnering with an individual, helping a person or a company craft their narrative in a way that's going to resonate across platforms, whatever those platforms may be. And as a content creator, I really focus on all things smart. Articles, tips, about productivity, career, and it's something that I love, and I've been doing it for about 3 years now, and something that I look forward to just as much as, I won't say look forward to brushing my teeth, but it's so much of a routine nowadays that it's almost systematized in the way that I approach content. And in terms of the types of content I love to create, I love creating stories on Instagram and TikTok, just quick little snippets. And I do like the carefree nature of TikTok because I feel like there's less judgment and less pressure than Meta and the Instagram universe.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say that I now consume a lot more TikTok than Instagram. I used to consume a lot of Instagram. Now I'm like, Instagram's for work. I get kind of bored scrolling, and TikTok is where I like go deep, and I need to know like what happens in part 7 of that 7-part thing that's like 10 minutes each, and I'm like, wow, I haven't watched TV in a really long time because I'm like deep in this TikTok story, and I need to know what happens. Okay, cool. Thank you all just for introing yourselves. I'm Frenchie Ferenczi. I'm a business strategist, and I also like to host conversations with people who I think are really smart and insightful around topics that are top of mind for a lot of people. And I think right now, for business owners, anyone who's really trying to market themselves, this idea of creating content is really top of mind. One, because we need to do it, right? Like everyone I work with is like, well, I need to be on Instagram. And I'm like, well, do you? Like, do you? Is that true? But it's top of mind. And then most people are like, but I don't want to be an influencer, right? There's always this like feeling of like, I need to create content, but I don't want to be like a traditional influencer, like, or I don't think brands are gonna, So the thing I really want to start with is, and we're going to go around the room on this one, but do you identify as a content creator? And like, if yes, why? If not, why not? And like, let's just get into that a little bit more, because I have a hypothesis, which I'll share at the end, but I want to hear where you all are.
I can
Jordan, you start.
And I would say how I think of content, like being a content creator in like the noun form, is somebody who that is the majority of how they spend their time and how they make their money is through their content. I could be wrong. I could just be in my own little world on that, but that's how I frame it. And it's interesting because I feel like I'm in this shift where I actually am making more money for my Instagram now than I am even my email list, which is fascinating and never happened in the history of my whole business. Instagram has always been a part of my making money for sure, but now I've seen way more because I track everything. I'm obviously a systems and data nerd. Like I see, like I can send an Instagram and build my list by 300 to 500 people fairly easily now. Or I can send them directly to a small bite offer and people purchasing more of the small bite from Instagram than they are from my email list. And so I'm seeing that my Instagram is almost performing as a very, very, very long continuous sales like page essentially. And the warm up is happening in the content. So then my sales pages have gotten like less and less long. Even I did a challenge. I was just, I don't know, call it laziness, just call it whatever. But I just created a simple Samcart checkout page. Like there maybe was a logo on there, but like no testimonials, no nothing. It basically was like, here's the like 6 bullet points of what you get. And I was able to get 74 people in my challenge, majority of that from Instagram. So it was like interesting. And it was a paid challenge. $79.
That's the challenge I'm in?
Yeah, the real life.
Is that the one I'm doing? I loved that
exactly.
sales page. I was like, I get it. I know exactly what I'm getting. Buy. Like, click buy.
That's what I want you to do. No scrolling, no dilly-dallying. And so I think I'm in this like messy thing where like I'm like, oh, I am now like making more money on my Instagram and this is interesting. And so I'm kind of in the messy middle of like, I wasn't considering myself a content creator, but I think now I like am becoming one. So here we are.
Here we are. I love it. Yeah. Julia, how about you?
I would say that I do see myself as a content creator because I am monetizing my content in terms of affiliate links. I actually have a brand partnership going up later today, my first one for 2024. But I would say that I make more offering my services. So when I'm partnering with people one-to-one. And I think what I like about content, like Jordan was saying, is that it's scalable. You have a sales page and you might have spent 3 hours on it, but then that delivers X amount of revenue when you keep sharing it. And I also think that as a content creator, trust is so important. For instance, for a long time, I didn't use affiliate links because I felt that it would cheapen my brand. And I really had discussions with other content creator friends of mine, and they said, you have an audience that really trusts you. You have an audience that you cultivated that relationship with. And I think the assumption now as a consumer is that every link is an affiliate link. I'm very fanatical about disclosing. I know some other creators aren't, but as a consumer, people want to support content creators. So I think that no matter what business you're in and no matter what your niche is, you have cultivated some level of trust, and you can start to monetize that trust through affiliate links, through sales pages, etc.
Yeah. I'm like this close to buying that walking belt, Julia.
It's really good. I recommend. You'll probably run into me wearing it over the next few weeks. The next time we go on a walk, I'll be wearing it so you can see it.
I love it. Amy, curious to hear your thoughts here.
So I feel like I'm in a different camp, and I kind of alluded to this when I was giving my intro, but when I hear the term content creator, as, you know, to put it Jordan's way, as a noun, like as a person who identifies as a content creator, I envision someone who creates content for social media specifically as their main source of income or revenue. And given that definition, I am not technically a content creator because my social media, I have like a very small following. I don't create most of my content on social media, right? It's in articles. I run a marketing consulting business. I'll get a lead here and there from social media, but my business leads usually come from my network and word of mouth. And like I said, I have this book coming out. And so right now I am using my platforms to create content to drive interest for the book. And it's probably the biggest like content creation effort I've ever put into my social media. And so indirectly, yes, I will make money from my social media content. Indirectly, but not directly. And it's not my main source of revenue. It's not even like a big fraction of it. You know what I mean? Like I said, most of my leads come through word of mouth, through people who know me, through my clients who recommend me to other clients. So I don't identify as a content creator in that definition that I described at the beginning. However, to Frenchie's point earlier, I am constantly putting out content. And someone in the chat, I believe it's Brittany, said, you know, I consider a book content. It's long form content, but like it's like the opposite of social media content. But yes, I'm constantly writing articles, writing lots of LinkedIn posts for my clients, but you don't know that I'm the one writing it.
Right.
And then, so indirectly my own social media, I am not a content creator.
Yeah. This is interesting. I mean, I once was in a program with someone and she was like, well, the hard part is that the internet is where nuance goes to die. And I feel like there's so much nuance here. And it's almost like, oh my God, it's true. I'm like, why can't we have these? Like, this is why I love these conversations, because there is that level of nuance. And it's like, ultimately, you know, and I kind of said I have a hypothesis. My hypothesis is that to some degree, if you're marketing yourself in any capacity where you're creating some version of content, right? And we've like really narrowed that into social media content specifically, but like even you know, Amy, as you were talking, it's really interesting because, right, you don't necessarily identify as that noun content creator, but by virtue of the fact that you're creating content for your clients too, right, there's some belief that the creation of content is necessary for us to grow our smaller businesses. And also true for large businesses, but I'm just saying like on the smaller business front. So I think the thing I really want to get into, and I'm sure people here want to hear, is like, where do you think we really need to be content wise? Like, what's working for you? What strategies should we be using? Let's start with just talking about channels that you have found success in or new success in, and then we can kind of expand from there. But, obviously we're all talking about Instagram. Jordan, you're doing really well on Instagram, but like, when you think about someone who is on the fence about getting into the content game, what would be like, okay, this is the first step that I think you should take? Like, what would your advice be on that?
I would say what I'm finding most interesting, and the Super Bowl obviously just happened, so there's like a lot of those sorts of lessons like looming in my head. There were now more than ever, people are super curious kittens about like your life and just like anything about it. It's not even like the deep stuff. It's not even like tell us your heart and soul, like what keeps you up at night. It's like, how do you take your coffee? Like, how many times do you walk your dog? Like, things that are just very normal. And proof of this, in my personal opinion, is at the Super Bowl, Kanye West did a commercial, literally, in his car, like super basic. If you haven't, look up, Google Kanye West Super Bowl commercial, and it is not, there's no lighting, there's no like anything. He's just like, yo, I bought this Super Bowl commercial, and I have this website I want you to go to, and it's going to show up down at the bottom, and it's Yeezy.com, Yeezy.com, and you'll find some shoes. Hope you like it. And it's like, what just happened? This dude just paid how much money for this spot, and he's just going to show up in his car. Like, and I know that I've seen this for like Dove commercials and HelloFresh and all of these things. They are using very like on the cell phone, not as produced content. And that is where exactly, Belinda, like literally he paid, I think, $7 million for the spot and made $19 million from the most basic Super Bowl commercial I think has ever been shown. Okay. And granted, he has that star power, right? But like, I think people just want to know more about who you are. And again, it doesn't have to be deep, dark secrets. It's just your values show and how you show up. And so instead of me being like, yeah, like I'm super organized, like, oh, actually I can show you a B-roll, or not even a B-roll. I would do like an Instagram reel of how I organize iPhone chargers between myself, my husband, and my son, because everyone is assigned a color because they kept stealing my chargers, and I'm over it. So I know if you steal it because you have the white charger. Okay. So, and people, that says more about me, about my iPhone charger obsession, than me just saying I'm an organized person, generally speaking. And so that is the difference, I think, now more than ever, is people want, whether you're a writer or video or audio, being able to share those experiences or examples is going to be even more crucial than ever. So even if, again, you're not doing reels, which I don't say everyone has to do reels. I find enjoyment in my self-expression there. But whatever you choose to do, lean into your experiences and those stories, because that is what people are going to be drawn to versus, and not that like tips or those sorts of things are out by any means, but I think the whole Alex Hormozy revolution of talking head videos is kind of starting to like die down a little bit, because people are like, okay, I'm tired of being talked at. Like, I just want to see what you're doing, so more like dialogue versus monologue is what I'm seeing a lot of. So those are kind of my few cents about that.
Love it. Julia?
Amazing. I thought that was a great example, and I did not see that commercial, and proves that even Kanye West has a lot of faults, but he can teach us about marketing. Crazy. But I think bouncing off what Jordan said, a stat that I recently learned that might not be shocking to anyone who is on Instagram is that organic reach is down 64% from last year.
I saw that.
So if your reach is not what you thought it would be, or is down from what it was previously, it's not you, it's the algorithm. And yes, of course, different content that you create will resonate more than others. That's just natural. And really, I think this is the year to lean into multiple platforms. And what does that mean? So there's so many different platforms to choose from. For me personally, I've invested my time in Instagram, Substack, and TikTok. I'm a natural writer. I love writing. So for me to be on an X or a Twitter type platform, I'm a very verbose person. I would struggle to condense my thoughts into that sentence, into 140 characters. So that's not the platform for me. So when you're evaluating what is going to, because all of them feed into each other. 6% of my Substack audience comes from Substack because the platform is recommending me to other people. And that's a powerful feature of the platform that's not offered by MailChimp or any other email provider. So I do really recommend Substack to everyone for that reason. In addition, that feeds into my TikTok, which feeds into my Instagram. And so I have people finding me in different ways. And then that trust builds because someone is engaging with you across 3 different vantage points. I personally believe you have to offer someone something different across every platform. No one wants to have content that's regurgitated. I find that really annoying. And even for large content creators, I know, like, come on, you're making $30K for that video and you're cross posting it and then you're not posting another thing for a week. You're just being lazy. But I guess when you're at that level, you can do that. That's fine. But when you are smaller, you really need to think about, how am I going to create a different angle and give someone something different across every single platform? And again, you have to orient that to your personal strengths and your natural aptitudes. Because if you're someone who hates talking on camera is necessary, but you can ease up to that by doing a carousel, and you could do a little storytelling driven carousel so that people are seeing your face, they're engaging with you, but they're not necessarily hearing you speak. But that's a way to ease into it. LinkedIn is also a really large platform. Amy, I do some ghostwriting for LinkedIn as well, and it's so powerful to see my clients get speaking engagements from LinkedIn, to get podcast opportunities from LinkedIn, and just people come up to them at conferences and say, I love your presence. So if you are a service provider, it's also very important for you to be on LinkedIn because there's kind of the old saying that you have to see something 7 times in order to buy it. But I think now I think that statistic is maybe 15 years old. The new metric is 30 times. So on LinkedIn or any platform, that's why you constantly need to be mentioning, promoting in an authentic way. And so for me personally, with my services, I will mention them once or 2 times a week because, first of all, I'm one person. But I know that throughout the week, I'm building up that trust with people through the other things that I share. So before I pass along to Amy, I just want to say that if you're a service provider, you need to be providing some other type of value. You don't want to be shilling, whether it's affiliate links or whether it's to work with you. It's just not a good look. So think of your angle, think of what your friends come to you for. And maybe that's not aligned with your business, but think of a way to integrate that into your personal brand.
Love that.
Yeah. I also want to say it can be overwhelming if you're coming to this world for the first time and realizing, like, okay, I want to grow my business. I want to figure out the best platform, figure out how to get my message on that platform to the right people. And there's too many options. But with that, you really can't go wrong, right? I would say start with one. So I'm probably focused on, for myself and my own content, LinkedIn, Instagram, and my newsletter, which I'm also on the ConvertKit Creator Network, Jordan. I love it. And those are like my 3 places where I go and I create content. Yeah, I'll check Twitter sometimes and reshare here and there. I'm trying to get more involved with threads, but I'm also realistic about my time constraints and what I care about and where I'm going to be the most authentic. So that's the other thing. I think a long time ago, people were saying you got to start doing reels. You got to start doing the talking head videos. And I was super uncomfortable doing that. I didn't want to do it, but I kind of forced myself to do a couple of them. And now I'm more comfortable, but I'm not my feed is not full of me doing reels because that's not true to me. I will make a reel if I have something to say on video that my audience will care about. You know what I mean? It's you have to show up. I almost think less is more. Go to the place where you're going to have the biggest impact, tailor your message to that audience and just start to get comfortable sharing there. And then you can slowly expand. Now I probably do a reel a week, and that's a lot for me. It's not a lot for most people, but for me, getting comfortable to get there was a big deal. I mean, I put other stuff around it, but I think you have to be realistic with your own time constraints and your level of comfort as to where you're going to go and what you're going to do there, and take baby steps. Like, don't try to do too many things in too many places. So like, if you go to my TikTok page, it's just a regurgitation of a couple of the reels I've done on Instagram. And like, you can tell that I am not invested in TikTok. I probably should be, but I don't have the time, and I haven't like spent the years or, however long putting in the work to really develop a community on that platform in the way I've done on LinkedIn and Instagram. And so I kind of like forget about TikTok, which is, I know it's ridiculous, but I forget about it. And then I go there and I'm like, oh, I should go look at some videos and I should post my own stuff there. But you feel it if you go to my page. But then you go on Instagram and LinkedIn and it's me. It's just me on those platforms. And there's a big, big difference. So I'm like my own case study here. But yeah, go to the places where you're going to have the most impact and be yourself.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, wait. I have like so many. I always write agendas for these things, and it's like kind of. I mean, it's a good starting point, but now I have so many other questions. Well, I think the first thing I really want to dig into this idea of organic reach, because not that we're going to like hack organic reach in this conversation, but I think that what I really want to think about is, there is this feeling sometimes among people of like, why am I going to bother? Like, it's impossible to get reach right now. And personally, like my social media strategy has always been what I've dubbed like outside in strategy. So I'm like trying to be visible everywhere and then get people into my IG, because I've never really trusted like the algorithm to like put me in front of people. Or I knew how much time and effort I would need to invest in creating enough content. Do you guys remember like 3 years ago when they were like, well, you need to do a reel every day plus 3 carousels, and there was this whole like weird equation. I'm like, who has time for that? Like, no way, Jose. So anyways, I guess my question is, for those of you who are, growing your audiences and reaching new people, what ways are you finding are working for you to use these platforms or to build your audience on the platforms without feeling like you're spending every waking moment creating content? Julia?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in there. So I think people have this conception of social media that you just put stuff out into the ether and it performs. And that is true. I've created viral content before without really that outside in push, but it is harder because obviously Meta is a platform and TikTok's a platform. They want to make money and they want you to invest to boost your posts. So what I really say is that I feel like my success as a content creator has also really been due to relationships. So that's something that I think a lot of people don't necessarily talk about. I love meeting other creators. I love amplifying other creators. And I think even if you're in the business space, I've been surprised at how catty it can be. Like if someone is in an adjacent space, they don't want to mention you or promote you. And I just don't agree with that because everyone has their unique point of view, especially in the content space. If I'm creating a valuable piece of content, I've had people who offer the same services that I do and said, this would be valuable to my audience. Why wouldn't I share it? And vice versa. So invest in DM someone whose content you really admire, start a relationship. And every time I post something, I have a handful of people, maybe 10 people, not the same 10 every time, but I know that they're going to share my content because I've engaged with them. And also they recommended me to their audience. So that's a tip that I felt from the start was not something really done in the industry. And I recommend it to everyone.
Yeah, that's like a real hack. So I think kind of like layering onto that, obviously audience growth is one metric of success. What I see happening a lot, right? I spend a lot of my time auditing people's businesses and being like, okay, this is where you should spend more time. This is where you should spend less time, so on and so forth. And I'm curious, and what I see is that sometimes we're throwing so much content out there, and then we don't even really take the time to stop and be like, what's working. And in my opinion, working is making me money, right? Like either driving subscriptions to my newsletter or sales directly. Like those are my two metrics of success for myself. But I'm curious for you all, like what are you measuring along the way in order to, one, learn what content is actually working for you, and two, where you should be spending your time and energy or not. Jordan, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I mean, listen, don't ask me a data question and think I'm just gonna take this lightly. I understand the assignment. So for me, I actually don't care about my followers. Like, and I know that may seem like, okay, Jordan, cool, you have 32,000 of them. Of course you care about your followers. I was stuck at like 7,000 followers for the longest time. And like, I just let it be there. And I just realized, okay, once Reels kind of came into the game, which was around that same time, followers became less like a matter. Like they didn't, I don't want to say they don't matter at all, but like Reels extend past your followers now so much that like I can have a reel reach actually more than 32,000 people, and a lot of them may not be, again, my followers because it's more than 32,000. So the numbers that I care about definitely are things like engagement rate. So typical engagement, again, I feel like the number fluctuates, but I've seen between like 1% and 3%. Mine's 12%. So I am like, and again, this came from testing. This is not because I'm just a magical fairy person. I'm like, okay, what actually works? And then once I find what works, it's like I'm hitting it every time. Like I'm just like, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel every time. Sometimes I'll test new stuff for fun, but like I am not trying to reinvent the wheel. So in that case, you know, I tried all sorts of things. I tried the talking heads. I did some carousels. I did, excuse me, reels in other forms. And I just found that for some reason, which is great for me, B-roll reels work the best for me. Like people just like to see me working at my desk with some text over it. And like, that's it. Or like me walking my dog, or again, me making coffee or doing dishes or like whatever I'm doing. And I basically just have text on the whether it's a listicle where it's like I'm sharing, I don't know, 5 questions or 5 tips or whatever, or it could be like, oh, this kind of email makes me hundreds of thousands every launch. Comment X, and I'll show you the email that I send. So, so that's how I've gotten my engagement rate so high, is that I have paid attention to the reels specifically have done well, and by well I mean high views, high comments, high saves, even high shares. And, you know, views, and it's, I wouldn't say like a typical combination. I would have to dive deeper into like how I actually do this in my head. But the, you know, if it's high views but low comments, I'm like, okay, that may be good for like cold audiences. So I may run like a $5 a day ad to like in like a audience on Meta's Facebook ad platform, and know that like cold audiences are going to reach that. So for example, one of them that is my house manager toolkit, which is about how I have a house manager, which is very controversial for a lot of people. And I recognize the privilege. I talk about the privilege in the post, and you know, people will say all sorts of things about it, right? But I don't take it personally, because I know that it's beneficial to me and my family, and it's really good for cold audiences. I get like 0.002, I pay 0.002 cents for somebody to engage with that ad. And it's usually not in the form of comments, it's just in the form of views. So like I can get a lot more eyeballs to me through my house manager toolkit reel versus some of the other reels that I do. And the other reels may be the main purpose of like actually getting them on my email list. So I'll show like 3 B-reels that you can film at your office, or here's how I track, you know, my marketing to make sure I'm making revenue from it. Those sorts of things are more like email subscriber focused. And so then I track those reels by how many comments I get that then start a mini chat automation, which is where a chat bot that sends you a link in your DM. I'll see how many of those am I getting, and then how many people are actually converting into email subscribers. And I have one landing page on ManyChat that's like at 81%. So like 81% of people that comment on this particular mini chat reel that I have are becoming email subscribers. So I'm like, bet I have that one pinned at the top of my profile. So they may come through my house manager toolkit, come to my profile, and then they're going to see something that they can actually go deeper with. And I know that converts well. So that's like an example of how I use different reels for different reasons, and then how I set them up to actually like engage with each other and create like kind of a funnel, but like not really.
Yeah. Well, it's a customer journey, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I think, and I think what I'm taking away is like, well, one, I'm like, oh my God, okay, I'm doing everything wrong. So if anybody else feels that way, it's cool. But no, I think the thing is that you need to assign a purpose to the content that you create so that you can like kind of measure the impact and the result. And like, Amy, I'm thinking about you, and you're doing a lot of this also for the clients that you do marketing for. So you probably have to like report back. So what are you thinking about when you do have to go report back, and like, you know, what do you think they need to be looking at and seeing and understanding about whatever you're, you know, like producing for them, but also the strategy that you're creating for them?
It's so true that every piece of content has a different purpose, and every platform is going to receive it differently. So I'll talk about what I do for clients. A lot of what you know, if I'm working with a client on a thought leadership strategy, and part of that strategy is getting their voice elevated and amplified on LinkedIn, and I'm, you know, ghostwriting a LinkedIn post here and there for them. Usually the purpose of that post is to get them visibility across folks on LinkedIn, specifically in the media, because they want to be recognized as a thought leader and be top of mind for media, so that the media comes to them to get quotes on certain articles when they're writing certain articles. And so as a social media marketer, consultant, and also someone who is a journalist, that's like my sweet spot for clients. And so it's sometimes hard to measure though, because again, it's indirect. I could talk about engagement and shares and likes and time of day and length and put the link in the comment, not the, you know, I could talk about all the logistics of a post and how it's going to perform given just like the vanity metrics that LinkedIn provides. However, if the purpose of that post is to make sure they are top of mind with media, like I can't tell you if that member of the media saw it or if some other member of the media saw it. Like we can't quite go that far. I mean, we could like do some things to try to get it there, but it doesn't quite go that far. And while it could get hundreds of millions of views, we're really looking for that very specific view of that very specific person. And of course, the more you amplify, the more likely it is to be picked up by your intended audience. But again, like it's an art and a science. Like everything is just such an art and a science when you get there. If I go to my own content and what I am posting on all the platforms, I think a lot of times I'll see that something I post on Instagram that just gets shared and shared and shared. When I post the same thing, and maybe it's like a cool quote or like a tip, when I post the same thing on LinkedIn, the views are sky high, but the engagement is so low. Because when people think about people's motivations, when you're on LinkedIn, you are trying to appear to be smart and marketable and hireable, right? Like you want to seem attractive to a hiring manager or to your boss or to your colleagues or to your peers in your industry, whoever that may be, whatever industry you're in. And if a quote or a tip or something useful is attractive to you and you're digesting the content, that's great. I hope that it is useful. However, again, those external vanity metrics, you're not going to see a lot of likes, because I don't want to click like on that, because I don't want you to know that I have to go to this person for my like marketing expertise. You know what I mean? Like you don't want that to show up in the feed of what you've engaged with. And so it's a very, again, like you really have to just backtrack and be so strategic about why you're doing what you're doing and why you're putting something somewhere, and know that it is not only about the vanity metrics.
Yeah. Okay, you just made me think of something. So I used to host this workshop called Revenue Planning for People Who Are Bad at Money. And I made an event on LinkedIn for it. Like I always do that as like it's just a cross promotional strategy. So I can just like invite my LinkedIn people and all that. And I made it, posted it, and like just tagged people who I'd had like relationships with, conversations with, and I got like reamed out by someone who was like, I use this space to help me build my client base, and I do not need anyone to think that I am bad at money. Can you please remove my name? And I was like, oh, shiza. Like, and I was like,
Yeah.
I started sweating like a lot because like this is like anytime I go to the principal's office, I'm like, oh my god, like, I'm in trouble. But it is, I think what you said to me just really struck me, because I think you're right. There is that feeling of, right, this sense of rawness and like showing up imperfectly that is far more acceptable on platforms like TikTok and Instagram than on a platform like LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Super interesting. So I can't help but ask this question now all the time, even though I hate being this person that's talking about like the most zeitgeisty thing. But I think that we can't not talk about AI when we're talking about content creation. And I have yet to really master the art of using, AI generated content in any way. But I'm curious to hear from all of you how and if you've used AI to help you with your content. And, if you think that we do need to learn how to use it more effectively to create content, or if there's other ways that we should be, using it, but not like just copying and pasting. So anyways, lots more to talk about, but
Wait,
no
Frenchie,
copy
you're
and
wrong.
pasting.
You do use AI, because don't you use Canva for graphics?
Yeah, but I don't.
That's AI.
Well, okay, yes, I mean generative AI. Sorry, just to be clear, generative AI such as ChatGPT. I have once. I'm gonna have to share this picture on Instagram later. I did put like a picture of me into something that was like, make it look like it's raining snacks on me. I was trying to do a promotion for strategy snacks, and so I was like, okay, take this picture of me and make it look like it's raining snacks on me, and it did not work at all, and I looked really crazy, and there were no snacks involved. There were no snacks involved. But anyways, I'm curious to hear how you all are using generative AI to support your content creation efforts. Julia?
So it's an interesting question. I do, Amy touched on as well, I do a lot of ghostwriting for LinkedIn. And one of my clients is really fond of sending me a post that she wants me to edit. And just the AI is terrible. Like, I can tell when something is written by AI, and I think people have not necessarily found the approach of editing properly, because I've seen content creators use it fully, but they don't know how to take the human touch and edit it. So for me, the only AI that I am using for my content creation is ManyChat. It's that automation, but that's more automation versus AI. I guess I haven't found a tool that works better than my own knowledge of knowing my audience, knowing what resonates with them, and generating my own content ideas.
Cool. Jordan?
Yeah, it's probably surprising for a lot of people. I don't use AI or I don't use generative AI for any of my content. I just solely look at the data from the platforms and base my decisions and how I create from the actual data. That's not a knock on ChatGPT or any of those things. But I once I get it down to where it's like, I take like 10 minutes to create each reel, ChatGPT is not going to reduce it down that much further for me. So I'm happy with where time spent and effort generating what I want it to generate, to where I don't necessarily need to add another tool in the mix for me.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Amy? Are you secretly writing all your articles on ChatGPT? Well, your book was entirely written by ChatGPT.
Yeah. My book, I know. I purposely, like, sometimes I'll use ChatGPT to be like, rephrase this sentence. I did not do that one time with this book, because I was like, you know what? This is like probably the last book that's not going to touch AI. Like, I'm just going to let that be, because I also want to be able to say that there was not one like letter written in this book through AI. And there are, a lot of the media outlets, like we frequently get communication from our editors saying, you are not to use any sort of generative AI to write any articles. I mean, whether people are adhering to that or not, I don't know. I will use a chat GPT as like if there's another person in the room and I say, I worded this phrase, like I worded this sentence in this way. It's kind of awkward. How would you rephrase it? So I'll pop a sentence in, see how it rephrases it, and then I'll usually like do my own thing to get it into a place that I like. So it's almost like I use it as a brainstorming tool. Yeah. I use it as a brainstorming tool, and that's pretty much it. But it's doing, 10% of the work, that not 100. And I think Julie is right. Like if you see something that's written by AI, you could tell. Like it's just so obvious. It's not good yet, especially in its written form.
Yeah. ChatGPT loves the word spectacular. Like
really?
Okay, we're gonna roll into some. Unlock or unleash. We're gonna roll into some questions. One thing I will say that I have used ChatGPT for, and I actually love, is copy editing. Like correct this piece of text for grammar. And so I throw my emails in there, and I love a comma splice. I mean, I don't love a comma splice, but I accidentally comma splice a lot. And
do you use Grammarly?
Yes, but it's different. It's like, yes, I do use Grammarly also. I know. Okay, so we're gonna roll into some audience questions. I want to keep us, on time, so we're gonna wrap at 1. So I'm gonna kind of pick on you all for different questions. Okay, so Jordan, I think you answered this a bit in the chat, but I would just love to kind of hear your thoughts on this a little bit more broadly. So, question from Brittany: I'm interested in hearing how your short-term video creation strategy has changed with a switch up in music licensing. Right now, I'm finding the best/most reach from original audio. Jordan, how are you thinking about this as you create your reels and your B-roll reels?
Yeah, so for a lot of my chill B-roll reels, I will just use trending audios. I'll just find one that again is under 5,000-ish and pop it in and call it a day. But for my more list building oriented reels, I tested a few different, I signed up for this, it's called Audio, AUDIIO. And you can actually type in any copywritten music, and it will give you uncopyrighted music that is similar by beat or by mood or by whatever, which is super helpful. And I recognize that my audience does not like slow music. It doesn't like the really mood, which I'm a moody person. And so I'm yes, but my people are nah, we want upbeat. We want I don't know, stuff to bop to. So I'm okay. And I found this one song that I don't know why, but they love it. And anytime I use it under my voiceovers, it does really well. So I'm great. Now I don't have to find any other music. This is just my one signature song, I guess, that goes under every single voiceover that I do. So I think that, it's with the TikTok thing. And again, I'm not super active on TikTok, but the fact that, again, they pulled the music, it's okay, that is, and we always knew that could possibly happen, but then for it to actually happen, it's all right, we have to just be aware of that. And so for sure, any voiceover B-roll, I would not use copywritten music, because then again, if it pulls it, then it's also going to pull your voiceover stuff. So then literally that piece of content is just floating in the ether. So I would just recommend you finding, again, audio. The one I downloaded was $59 for the year or something. It's nothing. And again, you could just find your signature song or songs, and then you don't have to have the account anymore. You just pull them off, use them for everything, and keep it pushing. So I wouldn't avoid it like the plague, but I also wouldn't put all of your eggs in the copywritten music basket.
Cool. I love it. Thank you. Also, I dropped in the chat audio. Did I spell it right in the chat?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Okay. I'll find the link and I'll add it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Question. Julia, I'm going to punt this one to you. So this is from Larissa. I'm a service provider, executive recruiter. I started to master regular content on LinkedIn and have a decent following. However, I know to expand my audience and start to grow leads for my business, I need to ramp up my content outside of LinkedIn as well. Curious, any suggestions, and more specifically for Julia, any tips on how to get podcast and speaking engagements through LinkedIn? So this is like a hybrid question, but Julia, I feel like you can handle all of it.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear Amy's thoughts as well, because she does a lot of work on LinkedIn too. But I think in terms of LinkedIn, I can already think of a few pillars of content where you would add value to the platform. So as we've touched on, you want your audience to feel good. I was talking to a friend yesterday and she shared a post about what she does with her kids before she goes on work trips. That post gets shared a lot, and then a similar post about building confidence doesn't get the same reach because people don't want to admit that they are lacking confidence. So think about a spin on HR, on recruitment that is going to add value to people. How about demystifying recruitment? I think there's so many misconceptions about recruiters, that they're salespeople, that they're hockey. What's the value add that you bring? What's something that you do with clients that people might not know? What other ancillary services maybe aren't a part of the core understanding of recruitment, but you also offer? I think in terms of podcasts and speaking engagements, telling your story and being vulnerable is really, really key. So how did you get into recruitment? A lot of people come to it as a later in life career after they did something else. What's your story? How did you feel compelled to work with people one-to-one? Those kinds of posts do really well. And then someone could say, oh, that story's really interesting. I want to have you on my podcast. So all the clients that I've worked with for LinkedIn ghostwriting, we really play up that angle so that, because anyone can write a thought leadership piece, right? But to have someone be on a podcast or speak, there has to be some kind of personal connection there to compel someone to listen further. Amy, I'm sure you have other thoughts as well.
Well, I agree with everything you said. And what I will sometimes do, or I'll work with maybe like the PR person, if the person who hired me to do their thought leadership strategy and ghostwriting also has a PR person, or I'll just do this myself, is I'll take a LinkedIn post that someone wrote about some topic, and you can use that post to pitch yourself to podcasts, to pitch yourself to media, right? Mm-hmm. You could say like, hey, I have this client, or hey, I am myself and I have all these great perspectives on this thing that hasn't really been shared before. If you saw my latest LinkedIn post, it really, sparked a heated debate in the comments, or, whatever your sort of like brag thing about that is. That can just be like a jumping off point or like a proof point when you reach out to podcasts. And if you're not someone, there could definitely be a situation where you post something on LinkedIn and podcast hosts just come to you. More often than not, you probably have to take the content you put out there and drop it into a podcast host's inbox. But just starting to like share your perspective on LinkedIn, test out new ideas, test out new theories, test out new concepts. You get that instant feedback in the comments section. And then you can see really what resonates. And then maybe like you take your best idea or your most well received or most engaged post and you use that to, get to whatever goal you have, whether it's media attention or being booked on a podcast, et cetera, et cetera.
I love it. Cool. Okay, we're going to have one more question we're going to answer quickly, and then I want the three of you, and you can start doing this, just to drop in the chat like where people can find you and connect with you. I think they're going to be able to figure it out. Everybody, you have to buy Amy's book. Pre-orders are gold. So I have to make that plug. I can't help myself. Any of my author friends, I'm just like, everybody buy the book. Okay, so the last audience question is from Isabel. And she said, do you have any tips for repurposing content that was designed for Instagram to LinkedIn? So one of the things that I'm just going to start and then we can kind of like go around. But one of the things that I thought of was this idea of like how that Amy, I think that you mentioned, and Julia, that you also talked about a lot, like how do people want to show up and be seen on LinkedIn? And so adapting it so that it's like speaking more to people's like resume version of themselves rather than like the raw version of themselves. It can be the same topic, but you might need to flip the coin a little bit. Any other thoughts?
I think that whether no matter, and we talked about this earlier, personal brand has to be personal. And I think people think that if they're sharing their services or they're sharing content on social media, it needs to be so buttoned up. But as Jordan mentioned earlier, people want to see that real life excitement. Sometimes I get the highest engagement on stories when I'm talking about my relationship with my boyfriend or when I'm sharing about my family. And so I almost grapple with this for a long time as a content creator. Do I show that part of my life? Does that delegitimize me as a service professional? It doesn't, because everyone has a life, and you're building trust, and that trust is going to compel someone to you and make them want to work with you more because you've already built that foundation.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I would build on that and just say again, like, make your content work for you. What do you want to get out of it? How do you want to reach the people? Like, what do you want the people that you want to reach to know? And how can you get your message to them? Right? I mean, that's at the end of the day, the questions that you need to ask. And that's going to dictate your decisions, like Julia's, of whether or not to share her family. Like, when I share my personal stuff and my family and my kid, highest engagement ever. But right now, my goal is book sales. And so I'm sharing content that's not necessarily performing as well in terms of engagement, but the relevancy to me is taking priority right now in my feed. So you have to, and like, decisions can change as you go, you know?
Totally. Your daughter opening your box of books with you is like a really good example of like, bringing the two together. Like, I'm really into that.
That was an authentic, I did not plan it, but she really came in at the right moment and made the video very good.
Nice.
I love it. All right, cool. Let's do one last round. One hot take or takeaway strategy snack that you want people to leave with, and then we'll wrap it up there. Thank you all so much. Amy, you start.
Just get out there and start trying. What's the worst that can happen? You get 0 likes, it's fine. Try again tomorrow.
Love it. Jordan?
Love that. I think I recently looked back on my earliest content and the camera was like this, like the angles are horrible. I archived all my stuff, but I think almost treating your social media like a diary, rather than focusing on the engagement, is a great reframe. If you are afraid, if no one sees it, who cares? And guess what? You did more than the person sitting on their couch criticizing the people who are out there on social media. So,
right.
Jordan?
Yeah, I would just like have some freaking fun. Like, I think that again with content, it's like it has to have 3 hashtags and be exactly 7.5 seconds, and you have to. It's like, no, like, not interested in any of the, like, I don't use hashtags. I don't know if that's right or not. Who cares? Like, I'm doing the content that feels fun to me. I see it as a way of self-expression. I see it as a way of connection. And so and that's why it's like, I don't fight people to do Instagram Reels, because if you don't enjoy Instagram Reels, don't do them. We can tell that you don't like doing them, So like, we can tell if you enjoy writing. So go to LinkedIn or Threads or X or whatever, like, do what feels really beneficial to you. Take note also if making sure your people are there, but don't fall into the trap of like, well, this is what everybody is doing and what's working for everybody, yada yada. And again, trying to create a checklist of all the things, then that it sucks the fun out of it. And so I encourage you to have some fun, and I think you'll be surprised at even just that shift of like having fun energetically behind the content. People will be able to tell, and they'll be like, oh, like, I like her, I like him, I like them, like, this person is really intriguing to me. And that's because the tone and energy behind it is completely different. Like, I can tell if somebody doesn't like creative type of content or not. So my tip is have some freaking fun.
I love it. And my tip is have conversations with people, with your peers. Like, 3 people in this room are people that I get to have like real conversations like this with, kind of behind the scenes too. And I think that we forget that we, regardless of how we're showing up publicly, like behind, we can have conversations about where things are working, where things aren't working, and we can learn from each other. So I encourage you all to do that in more ways than just showing up at events and with your friends and each other. So thank you all so much for being here. This has been so fun, and we'll talk soon.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.